Everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Mark Stiggy. It's my pleasure to serve as chairman of the Wyoming Infrastructure Authority. We're glad to be here in Jackson, Wyoming, to be hosting the various fall conference. Really, over the next day and a half, we're really going to enjoy the speakers, the panel discussions, talking about energy, funding of energy technologies, and going from conception to commercialization. So I think it's a great opportunity. But I would be remiss if we didn't thank our sponsors first. Our partner sponsor, Blackwood's Energy, support sponsors, Renewable Energy Storage Corporation, 3M, and Rocky Mountain Power, and a reception sponsor, Lighthouse Resources. We give them a round of applause. So I'm excited to welcome our first speaker. She's standing along the side in the wings here, just giddy with anticipation. Roxann Laird. Roxann is the director of the National Carbon Capture Center. It's a DOE-sponsored project, managed and operated by Southern Company. The center hosts technologies and developers from around the world and offers state-of-the-art facilities, expert staff, and a proven track record of successes. Roxann oversees more than 200 research and design engineers, operation and maintenance employees, support staff, and others. She also oversees the chairmanship of the International Test Center Network, a global consortium of leaders in the research and development of carbon reduction technologies. Roxann holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from Auburn and was recently named PowerGen International's 2016 Woman of the Year. Please help me welcome Roxann.
Good morning, everyone. We'll see how well coordinated I am with both advancing through my PowerPoints as well as the microphone. As he said, I'm glad to be here, work with Southern Company and the Research and Development Department, and recently assumed a broader set of responsibilities that now covers a diverse research portfolio that includes renewable energy storage and distributed generation. So what I'd like to do today is have a discussion with you all around how we take technologies from the very beginning idea of the research ultimately into commercialization. For the discussion today, this is going to be a brief outline. I have about 25 PowerPoints. Don't want to take all our time together. With all PowerPoint slides, you definitely want to make sure that you guys have opportunity to ask questions at the end. So first, what I do is give you a little bit of background on Southern Company and what our research organization is focused on, and talk through what we envision as the technology development process. And then more specifically, what's the status of carbon capture technology, and then we have some technology experts in the room who can speak on some of the specific processes that they're developing. But again, we'll just talk about this at a high level. A few facts and details from the National Carbon Capture Center, and share with you lessons learned as we have transitioned different technologies over the last 10 years out of the laboratory into a commercial environment. And then a little bit more about the International Test Center Network. And then finally, we'll close with what I believe is the most important takeaway from our discussion today, and that has to do with how we leverage our technical resources and our financial resources to collaborate and move these technologies forward. First up, a little bit about Southern Company. Southern Company is a diversified energy provider, and we are focused on building the future of energy. We have more than 44,000 megawatts of generation capacity, 200,000 generation transmission lines, and over 190 billion cubic feet of gas capacity. Our focus in serving our 9 million customers is to provide safe, clean, reliable, and affordable energy. And we do this in over 19 states through 11 different electric and gas utilities. The focus for Southern Company's Research and Development Department is to lead industry and innovation. What we want to do here essentially is learn by doing. We have a wide host of test centers that are located throughout our region in the Southeast, and we do this by collaborating not only with other utility peers, but also with universities and government agencies. As you'll see throughout the presentation and hear the discussions over the next day and a half, it's very financially intensive to do research. And not one single utility can do this on their own. That's why it's very important that we work with the Department of Energy to make sure that there's funding that's available for important programs like this, as well as other organizations like the Electric Power Research Institute, who's able to bring the funds together and support the technology development. These are slides that you've probably seen put out there by the Department of Energy, where it speaks to what is the process for taking technologies from the very beginning of it ultimately into commercialization. And it all starts with someone with a creative mind, an innovative perspective on technology. They have an idea. And so how do we take that idea and move it forward? Well, the first thing that often happens is someone wants to have ownership of the intellectual property. And so you begin a discussion around how do you develop that IP, how do you protect that, how can you use that to leverage to make this financial benefit for someone moving forward. As that happens, once we've established sort of that legal structure around that process, then we can get into testing in a real world environment and ultimately leverage those technologies where they can be deployed commercially. In the early stages of technology development in the laboratory in Michigan, there are a lot of technology options, right? And so you look at those numerous options. At this point, the R&D is not necessarily as financially intensive as you move through that process. But as you do that, you can see as you move to small pilot scale, large pilot scale, demonstration, and ultimately commercialization, there's a downsizing of those technology options. And as you move through that process, the financial requirements to do testing at those advanced levels continues to grow. This is the typical innovation S-curve that describes technologies as they develop from the basic principles up to proven technology. In the early stages of the technology readiness levels, and you guys may be familiar with that, it's defined in multiple different ways depending on which agency you're associated with. The Department of Energy has a TRL list. The Department of Defense has a TRL list. So these are just kind of an example that shows you that generic structure. But there are certain critical steps in the technology development curve, and where the technology falls in these technology readiness levels is extremely important to understand. So again, you can see technology readiness level 1, basic principles, all the way up to technology readiness levels 9, where the technology is proven. So this is an example of commercialization, and I just picked this one. This is mercury control, and it gives you a sense of the timeline that it actually takes to move technologies from the very beginning of conception, basic research, all the way through commercial deployment. And you can see for this particular technology, basic research started back in the early 90s. Again, mostly focused on laboratory environment as it moved in from the basic research to applied research, process engineering development in the mid-90s, and ultimately commercial deployment all the way in 2010. So it's this R&D through commercialization spanned about 30 years. And that's extremely important as you think about what it takes when you first start testing these technologies. If a company doesn't have some financial support to do the R&D, and you're looking at a 30-year time frame to commercialize it, the return on that research investment is critical to try to analyze as you think through what kinds of support you're going to need in the early years. This example is the transport gasifier, and it shows that the basic research started back in the 1980s as a fluid catalytic cracker technology, and it spanned again almost another 30 years to pilot plant test center. We did work at Grand Forks, North Dakota, as the test unit there, the development unit. Ultimately, the facility was built as the Power Systems Development Facility in Watsonville. We had almost 30,000 hours of test runs, and then finally that became commercial in 2016 with the operation of the Trigg facility at Kemper County Energy Facility in Mississippi. You know, that had over 5,000 hours of operation. And I know my colleague Matt Nelson was here a few years ago and spoke to the Kemper County project. So I did just want to show one slide that summarized the operational aspects of that project. They were able to achieve a fully integrated entire IGCC or integrated gasification combined system operation. They operated for more than 220 days. They were able to run both combustion turbines to produce power utilizing the syngas generated in transport gasifier. They operated the steam turbines to produce power with superheated steam from the syngas coolers, and were able to produce on-spec CO2, ammonia, and sulfur gas. This was the first of a kind commercialization of this technology, and in the early stages, the first year of operation had more than 90% gasifier availability. Unfortunately, for this project, due to a number of different factors, the most obvious one being the price of natural gas, the Public Service Commission in Mississippi's made a decision not to continue to operate this facility, which again kind of ties back, if you think of about the 30-year history of developing the technology, ultimately for it not to be economically competitive because of other market drivers, it's another important factor as you analyze what your research portfolio needs to look like. Now I'm going to shift to carbon capture technology, and this is really relevant for you guys in Wyoming as you start out with the Wyoming Test Center. These are the R&D test centers and demonstration projects that currently exist. Again, there's a lot of universities that have capability to do testing, but as far as test facilities that are operating on industrial conditions, these are the ones that we have available to us right now. Of course, we have the about 1 megawatt scale National Carbon Capture Center. Again, I have a few slides, I'll describe that in more detail. There's a 12 megawatt system that's located in Mondstadt, Norway. That's the technology center there that has capability to test on 2 flue gas streams. We have our 25 megawatt demonstration that's based on an MHI process at Plant Berry. It's located in the southern part of Alabama within Southern Company's operation territory. We have a commercial facility, a 140 megawatt Boundary Dam, as well as the recent announcement of the Petro project. As you look at the cost and carbon capture and how we're continuing to try to drive the cost down, you can see if you look at the reference case for DOE, this was based just on the generic solvent process using ethanol, amine, or MEA. The cost is a little bit more than $65 for the capture piece. Based on the work that we've done at NC3 for your first generation technologies, we've been able to drive that down between 50 and the mid-50s. And ultimately, we believe with additional testing and some of the innovative technologies that we're working on in the very early stages, that we can continue to drive that cost down. It is going to be quite a difficult challenge to be able to hit the $40 per ton capture. You've seen the goal from the Department of Energy based on technologies that we see that are out there currently. So a little bit more about the National Carbon Capture Center. This is an engineering scale test center located in Wilsonville, Alabama. As Mark mentioned, this is funded through the Department of Energy, which means that the Department of Energy provides 80% of the cost share. Industry and others are responsible for providing an additional 20%. This facility, or this center, was converted from the previous Power Systems Development Facility back in 2008. And at that time, we were awarded about $250 million to transfer, essentially building out infrastructure on the pre-combustion side, as well as building the entirety of the combustion carbon capture center. Operations began around 2011 with the first testing of the post-combustion unit. And ultimately, around 2013, there was a new agreement that was put in place. There was an additional $150 million that was awarded through a combination of both the Department of Energy as well as our partners. You can see here that the different partners that are currently participating in the facility, the history facility. We've got others that are participating, but these are the ones that we currently have available to us now. So just a little bit more about this facility and what it really takes in terms of resources to be able to do this kind of technology development work. Our focus here is providing a neutral test facility with multiple flexible adaptable slipstream units so that we can bring in a wide variety of different technologies that allow us to test over a range of conditions. To do this, we have to have quite a bit of resources, both from the infrastructure aspects as well as from the personnel aspects. You mentioned quite a few of the different types of technology experts that we have, but this includes everything from a full construction staff, can range in personnel somewhere between 50 to 100 employees, as well as the design staff that not only addresses the issues of onboarding technologies, but also challenges that are incurred during testing. We're able to come up with different kinds of economic or different kinds of engineering solutions, modify the facilities, so that we're able to continue work there at the site. We also have expert operators who've been running power plants for 30 plus years, as well as a number of different types of whole suite of engineers allow us to do that as well. In addition, we have quite a bit of data acquisition. This includes advanced chemistry for liquid and gas sampling and analysis. In the post-combustion carbon capture center, we actually have two different levels at which we can test. Our post-combustion carbon capture center is located at Alabama Power's plant, EC Gas, and we take a stream of flue gas from Unit 5, which is 880 megawatts supercritical unit. It goes through all of their environmental control equipment, which includes a bag house, a box scrubber, a sulfur scrubber. Once the gas is onboarded to this facility, there's additional gas cleaning that is processed so that we can continue to drive those trace contaminants down to a level that is acceptable to be doing testing for these different technologies. So this slide shows the bench scale area. We have the ability to run up to 5 different test units at one time. We have the slipstream solvent test unit, which allows us to test multiple different types of solvents, different types of chemistries. We're able to do that at a smaller scale. Perhaps the solvent developer has a limited financial ability to be able to produce large amounts of solvent, or there's some challenges, maybe they want to test multiple formulas, and so we want to be able to do that at a very small scale. In the early stages of development, we scale that up and acquire additional resources. We also have the pilot scale area. In this area, we're able to test 3 different technologies. Again, the range of scale is higher here. It's about 0.6 megawatts up to about 1.2 megawatts. The same idea is to offer multiple flexible streams and be able to test different types of technologies. In this slide, you see, again, the PSTU, which can test different solvents. So essentially developing a solvent, we run some early periodic tests and then long-term stability tests, and then ultimately be able to make an assessment on all kinds of modifications they may need to make there. In pilot phase 2, you can see the BAS blending process, which again is a solvent-based process. And then finally, in pilot phase 3 is a membrane technology. And so one key point here is you look at these different technologies, you can see the difference in the infrastructure that's required to do that. So obviously, as you look at this, you can see the membrane, much smaller, compact design, which is actually testing at about the same capability or the same megawatts as the unit next to it. This lists out major accomplishments for the NC3, and I'm not going to read through that. You guys can take a look at that quickly. The main point here is there is a lot of collaboration that has to take place, not only from the U.S. providers, but also internationally. So we've worked with technology developers in over 6 countries to generate more than 30 projects. Another key effort for us recently was in collaboration with the Department of Energy, working with their carbon capture simulation initiative. And what this allows you to do is perhaps skip a step in the scale up. So by taking all the data that's generated at our facility, you feed that into a complex computer model, and you're able to essentially predict what would happen at the next scale and potentially skip that scale, again saving both time and financial resources in your path to commercialization. So as you think through what does it take to move these technologies from the lab scale to the pilot scale, what we've seen in many cases is testing is done in laboratories. This does not really represent true industrial conditions, right? And all flue gas, there are a lot of trace contaminants that you have to deal with, and that can be much different than what they've experienced in the laboratory. So you have a lot of technical challenges in moving this technology forward. There are also a lot of other factors that come into play when you're working with developers. They may not be familiar with standard engineering design codes that are required for industrialization. They may not be thinking of how does this integrate into an actual power plant, how does it respond to load changes. Also, the key factors and the safety aspects and making sure that the designs have been reviewed by the appropriate engineering designs and they apply all the safety codes and that those designs and those technologies are safe in terms of the integration into a power plant. And then finally, just looking at the scale-up issues, there are always lessons learned there as you move up that technology development curve. So what are some key lessons learned as you run a test center? You need to make sure in the early stages that you define boundary conditions and so that there's an understanding of both the technology developer as well as the test center that allows for this testing. You need to make sure that all the work scope is clearly defined and covered in the agreements. You need to, again, focus on the design codes and ensure that those are consistent for the industry application that you're looking at. And then finally, on the project management side, it's key to look at the budgets and the schedules. One of the most difficult challenges oftentimes in research when there's a lot of flexibility in the scope is ultimately predicting what the schedule and budget will be and allowing for some of the unknown factors that occur when you test. So out of our lessons learned, we ultimately developed a project management guide working with Jason from the Wyoming Test Center over the last few years. We were able to provide a lot of that information, and hopefully you guys will find that useful as you launch it into your test center. A bit more on international collaboration. This is the key goal for our Department of Energy to be a technology leader not only in the U.S. but across the globe. We know that developing technologies to address carbon emissions from power plants is extremely important and again requires a lot of resources, and we want to make sure that we're taking again that leadership role in doing that. To do that, we have to be able to collaborate, and we need to do it in a way where we're not infringing on IP. There's a lot of concerns, obviously, around that. So the challenge there in the last few years, we were able to address by establishing the International Test Center Network. And this network is focused on sharing lessons learned from these neutral test centers. We have been able to look at a lot of operational challenges, specifically around solid-based systems that have come up as we've tested both at the small scale and the large scale. And ultimately being able to take the technologies from, again, the very beginning ideas to bench scale, small pilot facility at ours, and then ultimately launching those into large pilot facility testing. These are the current members of the International Test Center Network. Again, you can see there's a mix of both universities as well as testing that's being done at small pilot scale all the way up to our friends at SAS Power who have the larger scale system. So a few slides that describe these other facilities, and we'll just take a few minutes to talk about those to give you a sense of the scale and the resources, again, that it takes to move technologies forward. This is the Technology Center in Mondstadt, and I believe that, I think maybe Buzz is coming to present later today, but the several technologies that were tested at the National Carbon Capture Center that ultimately moved to the next scale at the TCM, and you can see a lot of those that are listed here in the graph. But again, they have the capacity to test up to about 12 megawatts, which is still slightly smaller than I believe the capabilities of the new Wyoming Test Center. This is a slide showing the boundary dam facility, and it again gives you a sense as you scale these technologies of the cost and operational complexity that's associated with it. This was actually the world's first commercial scale carbon capture. It was on retrofit of the existing coal unit up in Canada. They have the ability to do 90% capture, and the CO2 that's captured from this facility is used for enhanced oil recovery in the Wyoming oil field. Another example of scaling up the carbon capture technology is the MHI process. That a lot of early laboratory testing that was done on that ultimately resulted in testing at the 25 megawatt scale from a slipstream of flue gas, again down at Frank Area. This ultimately led, based on lessons learned there, to the scale up of the 240 megawatt Petronova site, and a lot of positive press on that one recently, exceptional technical results for that facility. And this facility also uses the CO2 that's captured for enhanced oil recovery. So I'll conclude with just a few key points on when you take technologies from, again, this research to ultimately commercialization, the importance of leveraging collaboration. First of all, financial. There are currently no market infrastructure regulatory requirements for CO2 capture, and so the cost of doing this R&D needs to be leveraged among quite a number of parties to be able to move this forward. The technology developers need assistance. If you, again, project that return on investment early on and look at the life cycle for how long it takes to bring these technologies to commercialization, there definitely needs to be some financial assistance there for those technology developers to move these technologies forward. From a technical standpoint, again, there are many lessons that are learned as you take the technologies out of the laboratory into the bench scale. Several examples related to trace contaminants, and then went into a lot of technical discussion around that. Glad to answer questions if you guys have any specific questions related to the things. Again, integration, making sure that these technologies can adapt to different load changes and the power plants. And ultimately, as we make comparisons about the technologies and try to evaluate which ones are going to be the best moving forward, we want to make sure that we have mutual test centers that are able to do this apples to apples comparison. And then finally, just the leadership component and making sure that we're out in front of these challenges and that we have both the technical and operations expertise once technologies are developed to deploy those into a commercial environment. So how we see the carbon capture landscape moving forward, again, back to our S-curve, this shows early testing. These are all examples that have been tested at the National Carbon Capture Center. And as we look to the future, we want to be able to take these technologies that have been successfully tested at our facility and scale those up. And I think the Wyoming Infrastructure, the new integrated test center at the larger scale is going to be a great opportunity for these technology developers to do more than this. And again, I would always be remiss in not recognizing the partners who have so preciously been a part of both technical and financial partnerships to keep the R&D with carbon capture moving forward. If you would like more information specifically on carbon capture center, there's a website there that would give you lots of detailed technical reports, and if you have insomnia about the material number, you finally I'll close and just ask any questions if you guys want to have.
Questions, Dave? Oh, is there a mic?
Thanks for that, Roxann, and congratulations on the well-earned recognition for you. And hopefully your Auburn Tigers won't take it out on Texas Aggies in a few weeks. The question is, as you're talking about this, and there's so many things that come into play, and the challenges of how to commercialize and ultimately get to the, really good commercials, marketable products, and throughout this process. What keeps jumping out to me are a couple models that have happened. And one is COSIA up in Canada, the Oil Sands Industry Alliance, and then also here in the U.S., CAMP, which is a crash avoidance metrics partnership. It's an automotive arrangement where you have all these intense competitors, all with their own sets of IP agendas, all with their own separate rates of return metrics. But what they all have been able to do is figure out, hey, there's some fundamental core things that we all need to work on together. And they get antitrust exemptions, and then they can retain the IP within that group because they all end up sharing it. And then they're able to spin out additional follow-on activities. So all that background kind of is, how do investors also come into this, where there might be this place to own a piece of IP to help underwrite some of the monumental costs that are involved here? Is there any effort going on to try to assemble a similar kind of organization that kind of tackle this on a much bigger scale and hopefully accelerate things?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any of the models that you've described, although there are other collaborations. The oil and gas industry has a group where they would 10 largest oil companies come together and form a fund to be able to go out and look at technologies that they would support through that initiative. We know that several technology developers will seek funding in certain areas. Recently, we're working with fuel cell energy on a project, and I know that Exxon is working with them on that to move that technology forward, but I'm not aware of a holistic group that's looking to support technology developers. Is a group, the way you're describing it, it's a particular relationship where entity would identify technology that they believe is the best one, and they go invest directly in that company or that technology.
Other questions? I didn't quite catch the integrated test center that you were alluding to again. How did that fit into the mix of spectrum of all those?
So Jason's going to give an update. He said that he's going to give an update on the test center later. I'm not familiar with all the details associated with that project, but it's my understanding that they are in the initial discussions to bring X Prize winners to the facility to test at small scale. That would be combining with carbon capture and utilization technologies. And then they also have a slipstream that's available to test up to about 17 megawatts. So the National Carbon Capture Center can test technologies anywhere from around 0.4 megawatts up to 1.3 megawatts, but that's the maximum capacity that we have. Technologies that we've tested to get to the next level, they typically have gone to the Technology Center in Mondstadt in Norway to do that testing. There's no infrastructure that I'm aware of in the United States that would allow for scale of these technologies at an industrial setting.
You,
Answer me for a second. Over, just got the mic back first, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I understand the SAS Power project was taxpayer funded, big subsidies. Do you think that project would have happened without government support? And second question, has EOR been primary focus of a lot of these projects on your slide deck?
So, your first question, I don't think that these larger scale projects would have happened without assistance. Both that one as well as Petronova was heavily funded through the Department of Energy. And so I do think there has to be some initial investments from government agencies or from others to support, because if you look at the economics of the projects, it can be difficult based on the status of carbon capture and what we stand for the cost to make those projects work financially. And for those opportunities, again, get the higher return on investment, the EUR has been the best utilization option so far.
My question is kind of related. I was going to ask about the Petronova project, which you mentioned has been a pretty good success story, relatively speaking. And I'm curious about the Cranberry pilot and how important that was for the scale up to the Petronova demonstration.
So the plant dairy project and the work we did with NHI at that level, I would say, was absolutely critical. There were several key lessons learned at that facility. First and foremost was the issues with carryover of the solvent out of the system because of the trace amounts of SO3 that have been in the flue gas after it's been processed through the scrubbers. There was a reaction where essentially you create an aerosol, and that formation of that aerosol carries solvent out of the system, which is, would potentially be an emissions issue as well as financial issues, and solvents are expensive. So that was a key lessons learned. There were several different design parameters that were changed to the scale to address that issue. The second is a concern over the accumulation of heavy metals into the solvent, which, if not processed properly, could result in the solvent being classified as a hazardous waste, which would ultimately drive up the cost of the system. So those are just two key lessons learned. There's a lot of other operational optimization and design parameters, but being able to do that testing at the smaller scale, I believe, was critical to the success of Petronova overcoming those technical and operational challenges at a larger scale, because it's easier to address those challenges at a smaller scale where the financial components are much smaller. If you deploy the technology at a larger scale and you have to address the problem here, it becomes quite expensive.
There is a national Enhanced Oil Recovery Institute, ERA, which I believe is sponsoring national legislation to incentivize carbon capture. I believe Senator Grasso is behind that. Has there been collaboration among these various groups and centers with the ERA?
Not that I'm aware of. Most of the test centers and what I'm speaking to is more technical collaboration, not getting involved in any type of regulatory collaboration.
Thank you. I got two questions. I was wondering, on your slide where you showed the integrated test center, the next step for some of the technology coming out of the National Carbon Capture Center, what would it take, or what's the timeline, maturity for those technologies to be ready to move into the ITC, and what do we need in place to actually get them there financially and otherwise?
I think there's a number of technologies that are ready to test at the next level, but finding the financial support not only for the developers as well as what it would take to build out additional infrastructure at the test center to prepare the flue gas for those technologies would be key. So I would say more outreach and relationships with technology developers and also what financial support.
You see the Department of Energy, from there, what you see if they looking to fund that next scale up?
I believe so. They recently had two FOAs that came out for larger scale testing. And I think that was somewhere over 50 to 100 million. The other person here might answer that better than me.
And the other question, when you slides you mentioned that the goal of $40 per ton would be a challenge, so I was wondering if you could share just what you've seen so far, and thoughts on some of the hurdles and what are the difficulties getting to that cost.
Sure. So the testing to this point has been mostly focused on solvent-based systems. And there are certain limitations from a thermodynamic standpoint of how hard you can drive that down. There's a certain amount of energy that's required to regenerate the solvents. And so you can continue to optimize solvent formulations and use solvents that are lower cost, maybe easier to regenerate, potentially use enzymes to increase the reaction rates so that it's faster. But again, there's going to ultimately be a thermodynamic limit of how far you can drive those technologies down. I think we're close to getting to, based on the technology or the solvents that have been produced so far, close to getting that limit. I do think the combination of enzymes with conventional solvents and maybe non-aqueous solvents could possibly drive the cost down more. So that's what I think we need to now look at, innovative ideas of combining solvent systems with maybe membranes to look at opportunities to drive the cost down.
Any questions? Roxann, I had one question for you. This is the proverbial, what keeps you up at night? If you look forward 3, 5, 7, 10 years, if you were going to rank order, what keeps you up at night?
I think the biggest concern is really passion around technology development and our appetite to spend funding for research and development and making sure that the decision makers are aware of the importance of investing in these technologies. It's not a short solution, it's a long haul. And there are a lot of challenges along the way. Sometimes in research, the answer is no, and so you have to understand that you can make quite a bit of investment and still have failures. And so I don't know that we're necessarily committed to that long haul technology development cycle. So I think that's the thing that would worry me is ensuring that we have the commitment from the decision makers to provide the funding for this kind of work.
And uncertainty plays into this, I'm assuming.
So a lot of uncertainty, obviously, with different administrations and how R&D budgets are funded, and that annual cycle can present challenges when you're looking at trying to do research over multiple years. And I think the Department of Energy is taking a great leadership role in ensuring that they're providing technical leadership and financial leadership for projects, but I do think that's a challenge, obviously.
And then lastly, funding impacts going forward.
So it's hard to know exactly what will happen in the future related to the budgets. President's budget did quite a bit of reduction in R&D associated specifically with carbon capture in some areas of renewables. As that is worked through the legal process in DC, there has been some restoration of funding. But again, I think it just depends on where they make the final decisions and how those funding pools are allocated.
Any other questions for Roxann? Hearing none, Roxann, thanks for your insights. Let's give her another round. Schedule, but let's move into our early stage investment